Rumor report. Rumor report. This is the Rumor Report.
Talk to him.
With Angela Yee on The Breakfast Club.
Well, Kendrick Lamar is on the cover of W Magazine. It came out yesterday, and some of the things that he talks about is why he feels like this album is different from his other albums in different ways. He said the other albums got a lot of accolades, the Pulitzer, the Grammys. He said this one is the reward for humanity for me. That's the beauty. That's the best feeling I've been getting. It's like when I be talking to some of my partners that never was able to express themselves and communicate. They only knew how to communicate with violence. And for them to call up their moms, call their pops and say, you hurt me. And this pushed me to go stay with my grandma, which my grandma pushed me to stay with my homies, which the homies pushed me to. For them to be able to express that and have that communication is rewarding for me. He also talked about the vulnerable and confessional content. He said a lot of times we play with the idea of unconditional love and don't necessarily know if it's real until you feel it. My children allowed me in their development as human beings, beginning to walk and talk, to remove my ego, to know that my children too will have their own independence. That allows me to understand the unconditional love on my end. Will I allow them to be themselves? Will I allow them to journey off in the world and experience life for what they know of? That's love to me. And when I look at that, I try to apply it with how I express myself, how I look at my career, and how I meet other individuals. Am I allowing them to be themselves without any judgment? My children have taught me that.
Let me tell you something. I've already told y'all this is the most important hip-hop album of all time, and you may not realize it now, but you will later. This album is a soundtrack for healing. It's a soundtrack for therapy. It's a soundtrack for brothers who are out here doing the work on themselves, for brothers who want to invest in their mental wealth. I love Kendrick Lamar's album, Mr. Morales and the Big Steppers.
Now, he also said when he finished the album, he said, I may or may not put this out. It's way too much. But then he decided to do it. He said, I'm a private person. It was tough for me. The reason why I had to make that decision, whether they was for or against it, I just didn't want the influence. I could have cut corners and got flashy with it and worded my words a certain way, but he had to be in the rawest, truest form he could possibly be.
Oh, I can totally understand why he felt that way.
That's the cover of W Magazine.
Yeah, I can totally understand why he felt that way, because when you listen to the album, it sound like you're listening into one of his sessions with his therapist. So I can totally understand. It feels that raw and that vulnerable. So salute to Kendrick. Drop on the clues bombs for Kendrick Lamar. I love this album.
All right, now Paris Hilton did an article that was published by the New York Times, and she talked about the staff members at Utah's Provo Canyon School. She said they would forcefully perform cervical exams on her and other female students. And here's what she had to say about these exams. And during the video interview, you could tell she was very emotional. It's not the first time that she's talked about it, but she said it is definitely sexual abuse. And at first, she did not discuss it, but now she's being a lot more open.
I was verbally, mentally, and physically abused on a daily basis. Every time I would use the bathroom or take a shower, it was monitored. At 16 years old, as a child, I felt their piercing eyes staring at my naked body. I was just a kid and felt violated every single day. This is unconstitutional, degrading, and terrifying. Children were restrained, hit, thrown into walls, strangled, and sexually abused regularly at Provo. I could not report this because all communication with my family was monitored and censored. And what is disgusting is the program doesn't just censor communication with family, but also with the entire outside world.
Yeah.
All right, when she was 16 years old, her parents actually sent her to that school because of her rebellious nature. She was there for 11 months before she went back home, and she talks about this in her documentary. This is Paris painting a larger picture of the problems she had in her youth, her traumatic experience at that boarding school. She said it was supposed to be a school, but classes were not the focus at all. From the moment I woke up until I went to bed, it was all day screaming in my face, yelling at me, continuous torture.
Damn. Sorry she had to go through that.
Mm-hmm. And she's been working with lawmakers to push through legislation that included the troubled teen industry law that was signed into law in 2021. That was to put more government oversight on Utah's youth residential treatment centers. And so that's something that she's been focused on.
Is this facility still around?
Now, I will say that they did reach out to them for a statement. And so the school did provide a statement. And what they did say, and this is to E! News, they said the boarding school was sold by its previous ownership in August of 2000 And they said what we can say is the school provides a structured environment teaching life skills, providing behavioral health therapy, and continuing education for youth who come to us with pre-existing and complex emotional, behavioral, and psychiatric needs. And so I guess what they're saying is, they sold the school, it's different ownership, and they did acknowledge there are individuals over the many years who believe they were not helped by the program. We are heartened by the many stories former residents share about how their stay was a pivot point in improving and in many cases saving their lives. So that's a statement from the school. All right, well, I'm Angela Yee, and that is your Rumor Report. Coming up next, Charlamagne, you have Donkey of the Day.
Oh, yes, indeed. 4 after the hour, man. I don't know what's going on out here with adults thinking that they can, just physically assault kids. But we're going to talk about it 4 after the hour. We need a guy named David Taylor to come to the front of the congregation. We'd like to have a word with him. He's from Florida, by the way.
All right. Donkey of the Day next, The Breakfast Club.